Well, hello. We are here with Tim Shrout. Tim, you have functioned really more kind of in the background at CRF and the Stone Table as a board member, as an advisor. And so we wanted to bring you kind of out in front of the camera for a little bit.
Sure.
I want to kind of pick your brain today. I want to get some wisdom and some insight from you. And so that's what
I don't know about that. I guess we'll see.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So I really want to start, I guess, just by, getting to know you a little bit. I've always known you as a businessman ever since I've had a relationship with you. You were like the business guy.
Okay.
So when did you know you had a knack for business? When did it click that you might be gifted in this arena?
Gifted, strong word. I don't know. Back in even high school, I always had a yearning to get into business, whatever that meant, right? When I was in 8th or ninth grade, I think it was, I was drawing schematics of a car wash, for example. I was always
Really?
fascinated with, automatic car washes were kind of big back then,
Yeah.
or started back then. And I actually had some drawn up that kind of, I thought, well, this would be a really cool way to do one. And then ended up actually owning car washes
Right.
years later.
Right.
Ran a Burger King as a night manager when I was 17.
So you really had a knack for business from a young age. I mean, it fascinated you.
I enjoyed business in high school. I was part of the top 50 business students in the state. We did things in college settings and stuff, and different really interesting special projects and stuff that we would get to do outside of the school. Stock market wise, different things wise. So accounting I was always good at. So it just kind of flowed that way.
So I guess then, as you became more fascinated with business, was there somebody you looked up to, somebody you aspired to be like?
Well, that's an easy one because I met my current wife when I was still in high school, and we dated for 4 years when she was I think sophomore when we met. Then got married, and her father, Roy Prock, was who's key to this story. Was someone that I was involved with early on. I was doing inventories at the apartment projects that they owned. I was tagging in, along in meetings of zonings, whatever. So I always looked at Roy as a guy that, hey, this guy really knows what's going on here, and that just fueled the fire of kind of how things unrolled. I had worked for other people. I'd worked for Hunt Paving Company, which built a lot of roads. That was an interesting situation. Worked at a bank, Indiana National Bank, for a while. But I'd say the first person really was probably Roy Prock when it came to me trying to emulate the success that he had achieved.
So then I assume that's part of your journey into real estate development. So, I mean, talk a little bit about that. I mean, how did you end up as a real estate developer?
Well, that's an interesting story. So when I first started with Cloverleaf, as it was called, Dominion Realty, Cloverleaf, kind of synonymous. My first job was going out to the projects and actually doing physical inventory. And then I was doing real estate tax assessment checks and making sure real estate taxes were getting paid. So I had all these little odd jobs because I was still in college. So I was going to college full time, working for them, and then after 3 years, I basically finished college, went to IUPUI and Indiana Central at the time. But I had all these little different kind of strange jobs. And once I got out of college, then I became more involved in the management company, which led me into the real management of the apartment projects. Well, apartments are interesting animals because they're really exciting when you build them, and they're exciting when you fill them. Then they get really boring because once they get full, most of the time they don't become unfull, right? Unless you really mess something up. So it got a little boring. Other parts of the business that Roy was involved with was the development side. Well, that looked really interesting because you're out buying ground and you're developing projects, whether it's commercial space or it's subdivisions for houses, whatever. So that really caught my attention because it was more exciting.
Yeah, there's an artistic aspect to it.
Exactly. You're creating something completely from scratch instead of, just having apartments that you've got kind of handed to you from the construction side and you're filling them up. So I got really interested in both the construction side of the business and the development side. So I started doing development projects on my own on the side. And one of the first things I did was the car washes. Started the Sparkling Image car
Right.
wash chain in Indianapolis as a side hobby, so to speak. We ended up with 4 locations. I ended up selling those to a big company out of New York after a few years. They did very well. Then I rolled that into some apartments that I bought on my own and developed on my own. But I was fascinated because the car wash business was interesting. You know, it was a daily. I mean, I had this computer. Even when I went to Russia in '94, I had my laptop with me, and you had a system called Car Watch that was hooked up to your car washes. You know, and these things can run a couple hundred cars an hour. I mean, they're big operations. And this system would show you everything that was going on.
It's pre-internet, right?
Yeah, basically. But
Did you have to put it on one of those old modems that dialed in?
exactly,
Or,
and it took forever. If you didn't have a good signal, you had no chance. But you had a situation where you could sit and watch the car counts per hour and your man hours per hour and all that stuff. And here I am over in Russia checking that stuff out because it was really interesting to me, you know. But yeah, so that was a fun business. Lasted for a while, then I got out of that and got more into the development of subdivisions.
Yeah.
A lot of those things on the side. I had talked to Roy about, hey, let me get involved in the development side, and he's like, you know, there's a lot to learn here, and it'd be easier for me just to do it than to teach you. You know, you can kind of hang around and see how it goes, but you know, you're running the apartments. That's probably enough. So I thought, well, let me just try to do some of this. So I was out doing some of those deals on my own. And the moment of truth came one day when Roy came upstairs. He said, hey, Chuck Loftner's here from the MCL cafeterias.
Yeah.
And Chuck liked to play in development deals. Must have been bored with restaurants, I guess. I don't know. And he said, he's here. He wants to go look at a piece of property. If you want to go with me and we can kind of see how this is done, I can show you a little bit. He said, that'd be great. I said, sure. So we're walking down the stairs to the office, and Chuck's there, and I said, where's this at, Chuck? And he said, well, it's at the corner of Fairview down on the south side. I said, which corner is it? He said, well, it's that northeast corner of Fairview and State Road 37. I said, really? He goes,
I know where this is going.
Yeah. And I said, I've already got that under control. And Roy looks at me and goes, you got what? I said, well, I've already got that under option. I've already got that under control and zoned and everything. And
Yeah.
Roy's like, well, how did that happen? I said, well, I just been doing this stuff on the side, trying to learn it, you know. And he looked at Chuck and he said, well, I guess we don't have to go down there, Chuck. So after that, Roy was like, okay, obviously you've learned what you're doing here. So I ended up getting heavily involved in that side of the business.
You know, I think what's interesting to me though, like my son Austin's getting ready to go to college. He's thinking about studying business, and one of his comments to me was, you know, he's kind of a creative, you know, he's a little bit, he's more artistic, and he's like, Dad, I just don't know if I want to sit in a desk, you know, at a desk in an office all day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what all business is,
No,
right? There's
it's
a
not.
creative element. You're
Absolutely.
a creative guy too. You're a musician. I've seen the designs you've done for a lot of your houses and things. You've got a real artistic bent,
Right.
and it finds expression, really, doesn't it?
It does.
In business.
Entrepreneurship
Yeah.
of sorts, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this old thought that, you know, a business guy is suit and tie.
Yeah.
I never wear suit and ties, as you know. But yeah, it's not that way. It can be that way. I mean,
Right.
I suppose if you're in some big corporation and there's a bunch of, you know, big rules, then maybe that is the pigeonhole you get stuck in. But
Right.
I know a lot of people that treat business as an art, to where you try to create, you know, something that's not been done, or you try to meet a need that hasn't been met.
Yep.
And you get creative with it.
Right.
And I've been involved in several of those things, you know, and that's what keeps you rolling a little bit, but amongst the day job of the apartments and more stable projects.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, maybe give us a like, a comment, share it with some friends. If you're interested in more resources from the Stone Table, you can find those at thestonetable.org/start. Before you go, hey, check out this other video. We'll see you next time.